Shabbat Shalom to everyone. Shabbat Shalom. This is going to be a very interesting Shabbat program at the end of our service. Those of you who are coming on board right now, we're going to have a guest speaker that was active in Israeli intelligence, military, Air Force, and within the Labor Party in Israel, and has come up with a proposal to solve the conundrum of how to get Israelis and Palestinians to be able to survive side by side without one endangering the other. So that is the discussion. Emanuel Shahaf, this will be our guest speaker. He's going to join us on Zoom live over from Israel. And the morning to warm us up, to wake us up, this week was the Ethiopian Jewish festival of Sagid. Sagid is an Amharic or Giz word for worship, bowing or praying before. It's related to the Hebrew word soged, the Arabic word for mosque, masjid, from the same root, there where we pray, facing prayers towards Jerusalem. And so Israel adopted it as one of its national holidays. So for the Moroccans, they had the Maimuna, and now the Ethiopian Jews, they have the Sagid. So I'm going to put that one on for us. It's the Ethiopian Sagid, and it shows the actual pilgrimage to the Western Wall carried out in Israel today by the Jews of Ethiopia. And you have the words, if you can follow them, I'm going to Jerusalem. Wherever I am, I'm going to Jerusalem. Yes, go.
ويعمتو نقستات ومسافنت يسجدوا يروسالم يسجدوا يروسالم يسجدوا يروسالم ويعمتو تنشتلك كل سيد يسجدوا يروسالم يسجدوا يروسالم أدنى شما بقولي تيانا وزنخا كشبات ركول تانونا إما بنو تشمرا أدنى كيم خاسلخا شمايم اشتهبوا ليروشالايم اشتهبوا ليروشالايم اشتهبوا ليروشالايم מתוך גלות כל עם ישראל וכל דור ודור התפללו להם 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 אמן 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 תבנה ותגונן ירושלם ירושלם אמן 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 תבנה ותגונן ירושלם אמן 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 በጊዜያችን ትሰራ ኢየሩሳሌም ኢየሩሳሌም አማን 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 ትባነ በትኮነን ኢየሩሳሌም አማን 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 በጊዜያችን ትሰራ ኢየሩሳሌም ኢየሩሳሌም
One day we'll have a session on Jews of Ethiopia. There we go. Okay, that's better. Okay, so one day we'll have a session on the Jews of Ethiopia. I had a member of our congregation back in Whittier, this was going back to the 1980s, who was from Ethiopia, and her father came to visit. It turns out father was a teacher of Hebrew language and Jewish, modern Jewish thought in Ethiopia, and he was trained himself by one of the great scholars who came to Ethiopia to reconnect with the Jewish community after centuries of disconnect. It's very interesting that they have their Holy Scriptures in Ge'ez, which is their equivalent of Yiddish or Ladino, and they have the 5 books of Moses in it. Some of the books of the prophets, not all of them, which would indicate that this is a community that had separated in many ways from the rest of the Jewish people, maybe before the time of the Maccabees, possibly, because that's where you have the start of getting together the books that we have as our official Jewish Bible. So going back to very ancient roots, fortunately, if you watch the news, you understand that Ethiopia right now is in the process of falling apart. And the war is going on between Ethiopia and the north of Tigray region. Tigray is where the Jews were. So this terrible fighting and hunger was going on just in the region where the Jews were located. They are now mostly in Israel. And I think about it, throughout the Middle East, all those countries where there were Jewish communities and populations and the Jews had left, whether they were chased out forcibly or because they wanted to go to the land of Israel, all of those countries are falling apart or facing disarray. The only exception being Morocco, which is a stable country. And Morocco, that's the country where the king saved his Jews when Morocco came under the rule of the Vichy French and the German forces. And it was the king, I think it was Hassan, I can't remember the king's name for sure, protected his Jews. Maybe that's a lesson. You want to be a prosperous country with stability, protect your Jews. That's the takeaway for this morning. So let's go ahead to Matovu, and now we'll join in live. And we're going to try to move ahead sort of speedily through the service without rushing it, because I want to be able to get to our speaker a little bit early. We want to be able to take time for a discussion without rushing. So we go ahead to Matovu, page 2, and let's all join in. Matovu Ohalecha Yaakov Mishkenotecha Yisrael Ma tovu oho lecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael ani berov chasdecha avo veitecha mishkan kevodecha ani eshtachave be'echra'a evrechesh Adonai osi ani tefilahati lecha Adonai. Page 10. Let's do the morning blessings together. Recite with me or just join in the Amen chorus. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lasafrin avchim ben yom uben laila. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Shasani b'tzamo. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Shasani Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Shasani ben chorin. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Pokech Ivrim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Mabi Sharumim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Matir Asurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Zokef Kefufim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Rak haaretz ala mayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Shasali kol tzorki. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamechin mitzadei gaver. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam oz yisur bigvura. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam oteiseh b'tifara. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hanaten laif koach. And let's continue with the Baruch She'amah. Amen, amen. Very interesting about the word amen, by the way. Amen, brother. Amen. It's so universal now. I listen to watch Turkish television, and they keep on saying amin. And everybody's amin is amen. Whereas Turkish is not a Semitic language, but of course they get it from the Arabic. So I'm going to presume that all Muslim countries use amen. Dr. Norman, in Persian, do they use amen? Amen, right. So it's universal. Look at this form, this term. Good. So we've had something, one of the impacts that we've had. Page 54. Let's recite the opening. Baruch Shama V'Yahaolam Baruch Hu Baruch Oseh V'Reishit Baruch Omev Yoseh Baruch Gozerem Kayem Baruch Merachem Ala Aretz Baruch Merachem Ala Briot Baruch Mishalem Sachatov L'Reav Baruch Haylad V'Kayem L'Netzach Baruch Podeh Matzir Baruch Shemo Baruch Atar Mechalam Ha'el Ha'av Harachamon Hamhulol B'Fiamo Mishubach Mfar Bishon Chasidav V'Avadav Uvishirei David Abdecha Nalel Chadnei Lahenu Bishvachot Vizmerot Negadel Chad Shabecha Chanfuer Chavanaskir Shimcha Namlicha Makenu Elhenu Yachid Hey Olamim Melech Mishvah Fada Shma Gadol Baruch Atana Mechmulal Batish Bachot. And we chant the Ashrei, page 80. Ashrei Yishvei B'Techa Delu Chasel Hashem Shekach Hashem. Page 80. Tilat Adonai daber pi v'orach pas Hashem kachal le'olam v'ed v'anachnu nevarech ya me'ata v'ram hallelujah. And we shall praise the Lord now and always. Hallelujah. And that's another word that certainly throughout the Christians' world has become universal. I wonder again if it is used in some form in Arabic. Something similar, I'm sure. Page 88. We're going to go ahead with the Hallelujah chorus. Page 88, the Psalm 150. Let's join in together. Hallelujah, 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 bekacho. Hallelujah, hallelujah, bikia uzo. Hallelujah, 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 big murotav. Hallelujah, hallelujah, kirov gulo. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, b'teik hashofar. Hallelujah, hallelujah, kirov good Lord. Hallelujah, 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 b'tov umachol. Hallelujah, hallelujah, b'minim ve'ugav. Hallelujah, 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 b'tzitzilei shama. Hallelujah, hallelujah, b'tziltzilei truah. Kohan shamate haleya, Kohan shamate haleya. Kohan shamate haleya, hallelujah. Kohan shamate haleya, hallelujah. We continue now with the Shacharit, which is on page 336, and let's all join in together. Shochenad marom v'kadosh shemo v'chatuv ren tzadikim baranai la'isharim nava tehila v'fi yisharim te'et ha'halal uv'divrei tzadikim te'barach uv'shan chasidim te'tromam uv'kerev kedoshim te'et kahadash uv'makalot v'bevot amcha beit Yisrael. שכן חובה כיצורים לפניך בני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו להודות להלל לשבח לפאר רומם להדל לברך להלל לקהל סך הכל דברי שיר תשבחות דוד בן ישי עבדך משיחך ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו. ברכות והודות מעתה ועד עולם ברוך אתה אדוני אמת גדול בתשבחות אל הודות הנפלאות הבוחר בשירי זמרה מלך מלכי עולמים. Okay, we're 9 and Doug is with us online. Good, that gives us a minion. Let's go ahead. We rise for the Baruch. We'll start with the Chatzi Kaddish and then go into the Baruch. Yikada v'yitkada shemei rabba v'yamad yivrach yirutei v'yamnichna chutei v'chayechon u'vyamechon uv'chayedechol beit Yisrael ba'agala u'bizman karib v'yimeru amen yehi shmei rabba mevorach ve'olam lo me'almaya yibarach v'yishtabach b'far v'yishtamam v'yitnasei Vitadar, vitale, vitalal, shemei de kursha, berichu, leila min kol bechata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechemata, da'amiram be'alma v'yimeru, amen. Baruch et Adonai, ha'mevorach, le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai, ha'mevorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai, ha'mevorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai Cholam Yotzevrei Choshech, Oseh Shalom V'Rei HaKol. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to sing El Adon together the regular way for a change, the way we like it, always together. Yeah. Go ahead, Joe. You lead. Go, Joe. Adon al kol hamasim baruch umvorach v'fi kol neshama galo v'tova malei olam da'atu tvona sobev imoto המתגאה חיות הקודש, ונדע בכבוד המקווה, זכותו משאר לפני חיסו, חסד ורחמים לפני כבודו, טובים מאורות שברא אלוהינו, יצרם בדעת בבינה ובהשכל, כוח וגבורה נתן בהם, להיות מושלים בקרב תבל, מלאים זיו ומפיקים נוגה, נועה זיוום בכל העולם, שמחים בצאתם וששים בגבוהם, עושים בהם הרצון קונם, פאר וכבוד נותנים לשמו, תולה ורינה לזכר מלכותו, קרא לשמש ויזכור, ראה והתקין צורת הלבנה, שבח נותנים לו כל צבא מרום, תפארת וגדולה, שרפים ויופנים וחיות הקודש. זה השבת מכל מעשה יברך צמשינו, שבח מעשה ידיך, שעשית יפרוך הסלע. We continue page 344, the division of the angels singing the praise of God in the words of Isaiah and Ezekiel. כולם אוהבים, כולם ברורים, כולם גיבורים, כולם עושים ברצון קנם, כולם פותחים את פיהם בקדוש הפטרה, שירים ומברכים, שבחים, פרים, מריצים, מקדישים וממליכים את שם האל, המלך הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, קדוש הוא. כולם מקבלים עליהם מלכות שמיים זה מזה, ונותנים רשות זה לזה, להקדיש ליוצרם, ונחת רוח בסוף ונאמר קדושו, כולם כי אחד רנביר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, לארץ כבודו. ואופנים וחיות הקודש, ברעש כרוב מתנסים לעומת צרפים, תם שבחים ואומרים, ברוך כבוד אדוני, ממקומו, ברוך נמות יתנו. To the praiseworthy God, they sweetly sing, the living, enduring God, they celebrate in song. The bottom of page 344. Oh, Chadash, Atzion Ta'ir, V'nizkech l'Ramera li'oro, Baruch Adonai, Yotzeh HaMeorot. Praised are your Lord, Creator of all lights. And we continue. Let's sing together Ahava Rabbah, page 346, the expression of love that we feel from God in giving us divine guidance and wisdom in our minds and in our hearts through the words of the Torah, through the teachings of our sages in all generations. And we continue. Ava Rabba Haftanu Adonai Eloheinu Chem Lagidol Avitera Chamata Aleinu Avinu Malkeinu Ba'avur Avotenu Shebatchu Becha Avinu Malkeinu Vatelamdem Chukei Chaim Kein Techanenu Tlamdenu Avinu Ha'av Harachaman Amrachem Rachem Aleinu Vetem Belibeinu Lahavin Lahaskil Lishma Lilmod Ulilamed Lishma Velasot Ulekayem Ekol Divrei Talmud Toratecha B'Yahava V'ha'er Einenu B'Toratecha V'dahabek Libeinu B'Mitzvotecha V'yached Levaveinu Li'ahava U'lira Et Shemecha V'la Nevosh Le'olam Va'ed V'la Nevosh Le'olam Va'ed Ki V'shem Kadshecha Agadol V'hanara B'atachnu Nagila v'nismecha b'shuatecha v'havienu l'shalom haba kanfot oretz v'tolichenu kamimiyut כל מיעוט לארצנו, כי על פני ישועות אתה, בנו בחרת מכל עם ולשון, קרבתנו לשמך הגדול, סלע סלע באמת, להודות לך וליחדך באהבה, ברוך אתה אדוני, הבוחר בעמייסה באהבה. Together we take the tzitzit. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. ואהבת את אדוני לך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ולך בדרך שכבך ופקומך וקשתם לאות על ידיך ותטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם עמזות ביתך וישעריך. למען ירבו ימיכם וימי בניכם על האדמה אשר נשבע אדוני לאבותיכם לתת להם כימי השמיים על הארץ. Together on the bottom page 348, we take tzitzit in hand. ויאמר אדוני משה לאמור דבר אל בני ישראל ואמרת להם ועשו להם ציצית על כנפי בגדיהם לדורותם ונתנו הציצית על כנף פתיל תכלת ולכם לציצית וראיתם אותו זכרתם מכל מצוות אדוני ועשיתם אותם ולא תטורו אחרי לבבכם ואחרי עיניכם שאתם זונים אחריהם למען תזכרו ועשיתם מכל מצוותיי אתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני לכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני לכם אמת. Continue on the bottom, page 350. We put aside the tzitzit and continue with the song of liberation at the shores of the Red Sea. Tilot le'el elyon baruch hu mevorach Moshe uvnei Yisrael chanu shir b'simcha rabah v'yamru cholam mi kamocha bo'elim Adonai mi kamocha nedor b'kodesh nora tilot osef ele shira chadash shivchu geulim l'shemcha al sefat hayam שירה חדשה, שבחו גאולים לשמך, על שפת הים. יחד כולם הודו, יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ויאמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. צור ישראל, קומה בעזרת ישראל, עובדינו ממך יהודה וישראל. גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו, קדוש ישראל ברוך אדוני גואל Yisrael. And we continue the opening of the Midah together, 354 and 356, and then over through 364, and we can do the Hebrew, and when you do the silent reading, the English, add your own meditations from the bottom of your heart. We continue page 354 together. Adonai sifatai tiftach upi yagid tilatecha baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'elahei avotenu Elahei Abraham Elahei Yitzchak ve'elahei Yaakov ha'el hagadol hagibor v'hanara el elyon gomer chasadim tovim v'kaneh hakol v'zacher chazdei avot v'nehem leman shemo b'ahava melech ozer Moshe magen baruch atah Adonai magen Abraham אתה גיבור לי עולם אדוני, וחיימתי מטרה להושיע, משיב הרוח מוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו, לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומדום מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישוע, נאמון אתה חיות מתים, ברוך אדוני מחיה המתים. נקדש שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, כתוב היד נביאך, קרא זה ויאמר, קדוש קדוש קדוש, אדוני צבאות מלך הארץ כבודו. אז בקול רעש גדול, אדיר וחזק משמיעים קול, מתנסים לעומת צרפים, ולמותם ברוך יאמרו, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. אי ממקומך, מלכנו תופיע, תמלוך עלינו כמחכים אנחנו לך, מתי תמלוך בציון, קרוב בימינו ותשכן, תתגדל ותתקדש בתוך ירושלים, לדור ודור ונצח נצחים. ועינינו תראנה מלכותך כדבר אמור בשירי עוזך. עד דוד משיח צדקך ימלוך, אדוני לעולם מלך ציון, טוב ודור הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גדלך לנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש, שכחה אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש. ושלום ועד כי המלך גדול וקדוש אתה ברוך אדוני האל הקדוש. מה? Gotta go ahead, back instead of ahead, to page 358, Vishamru, Cantor Ozzy Schwartz, Park Avenue Synagogue. Vishamru is a very lively melody. He's going to lead us in it. Right, here we go. Yes, start at the beginning here. Yeah, there we go. That's good. Go ahead.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם. השבת, את השבת, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, את השבת, כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת, ויהי נפש, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, את השבת, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, את השבת, את השבת.
And we're going to go ahead. There we go. Put that on pause. Good. Okay. Go ahead now. A little bit, turn down the volume. That's it. Lower. That's it. Okay. Go back and forth. Cool. Let's go ahead. Okay, still a little bit loud. That's it. I think we're sort of in. Okay, good. I think we got it. Going to go ahead. Page 628. Page 628 is the last discussion in chapter 3 of Pirkei Avot. And at first glance, it sounds very bizarre. What does he say? Rabbi Elazar ben Chisma. Rabbi Elazar Chisma Omer. Kinin, pitchei nidahen hen gufei halachot. Kinin. Kinin from the word kan, bird's nest. It has to do with the offerings that are given when one gives a bird offering. And what's the particular problem? What if you mix one kind of bird with another kind of bird? Which was the offering first? Which is the offering second? Very abstract discussion. In fact, it's so abstract that he's the contemporary of Rabbi Akiva, a student of Rabbi Akiva. That means he's 50 years after the temple is destroyed. Nobody is doing this. And he says, Gufei halacha. This is the essentials of halacha. It's very abstract. Then the other one, pitchei nida. What is pitchei nida? Nida has to do with a woman who is menstruating in periods of purity. Pitchei nida is how do you calculate it? The discussion is when there's an irregularity. An irregular. In other words, it's a case that may appear once in 10, once in 100. Very odd. Things that you don't run across in halacha very often. He says, Gufei halachot, that is the most essential. What he's trying to say is that, obviously, even the tiniest detail of Jewish law, whether we no longer observe it as with sacrifices, or whether it's day to day, but it's a very obscure case, that is like all the other laws of the Torah from Moses to Sinai. Gufei halachot. So this is what a Jew is supposed to be doing. Then, tkufot ugematriot. Tkufa, down just a touch. Yeah, down, just a touch. That's it. I think it's good. Okay, so tkufot has to do with calculation of the seasons by looking at the planets, positioning of the planets, sun, moon, the stars, and so on. And by that, you can calculate times, you correct your calendar. That's very important because the calendar has not yet been fixed. It's another century till they fix the calendar. So that should be something very important. Gematriot. Gematria comes from actually the Greek word geometry, measurements. Well, gematria in Hebrew is calculation of meanings of words by giving them number values. You know, like chai is 18, you give $18, chai, that sort of thing. Gematriot, all these attempts to understand, find secret meanings, find hidden meanings in the Torah. So tkufot, something very scientific. Gematriot, something very speculative. Parparaot lechochma. What is a parpar in Hebrew today? Modern Hebrew. butterfly. This is the little twitters of the brain. It's nice. Is it important? It's like a butterfly is pretty. It's not that butterfly is not important, but it's not quite the, when you talk about butterflies of the brain, I'm not saying this is really significant. Now, there's another interpretation, which is rafrefet, just reverse the letters, which is very common. Rafrefet means this is a dessert. Okay, you've eaten your dinner, which is real study. Now you go on to these things that are like dessert, ice cream and candy. Don't indulge too much, it's not good for you. Very odd, very odd. The rabbis choose to include this. What happens to the whole idea of Jewish scientists and philosophers and poets and even the Midrash? Wasn't nice, right? Classic Jewish position, especially among Ashkenazic Jews, more so than among Sephardic Jews, was that the only thing we have since the temple was destroyed are the four corners, we may say 4 feet of the halacha, of studying what we are supposed to do. Everything else is, okay, right? For people that have produced philosophers and scientists, that's an odd consideration. But if you look at Ashkenazic Jewish history, that's what Ashkenazic Jews focused on. That's why the great yeshivas came out of Ashkenaz. Sephardic Jews focused on Bible, so great biblical scholars came out of the Ashkenaz, Sephardic Jews. Philosophy, great philosophers, scientists, mathematicians, so mostly out of the Sephardic world. But the classic critical thinking, critical analysis was influenced by this. So now, in modern Jewish thinking, well, we're no longer such halachists. Orthodox friends we're not so. We call ourselves a halachic movement, but we're much more flexible. Right? This week there was a wedding between 2 women, rabbis, gay, married each other, they're members of the conservative movement, right? That's not quite halacha. Okay, so we recognize, we deal with also tkufot in gematriot as well as kufei halacha. But the bottom line, what he's saying is, well, it's ultimately it's what you do that is more important than how you think, right? And so you have to know what to do. That's what we're trying to get at. So that's Rabbi Elazar Chisma. The Kaddish the Rabbanan, page 20. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba v'alma divrach yudutei v'amlich malchutei hayechon v'yamechon hayedachol Beit Yisrael b'agalav izman kari v'imru amen Yehi shmei Rabba mevorach le'olam u'le'maya Yebarach v'ishtabach v'pa'ar v'tamam v'yitnasei v'yithadar v'yitale v'yithalal shemei dekucha berichu le'ela min kol bir chata v'shirata tush b'chata v'nechemata damram b'yama v'imru amen al Yisrael v'al Rabbanan v'al tamidei hon kol tamidei hon kol man doskim b'oraita di v'atrach adem v'di b'chol atar v'atar Yehi lahon ulachon shlom rabba china v'chista v'rachamin chayin arichin zona viche v'kodem mikodem v'uchon di v'shmai v'yiromein Yehi shlom rabba min shemai v'chayim tovim aleinu v'akoyse v'yiromein oseh shalom b'imromav hu b'rachmav yaseh shalom aleinu v'akoyse v'imru Amen. And we continue with the Torah service, and we're going to open up. I've been wanting to play this for a long time. It's a beautiful presentation, choral and symphonic. And I'm only going to do the first half because it goes right through the Shema, and we need time to take out the Torah. So I'll do first half of it this Shabbat, and another Shabbat I'll do from the Shema on, just because I like it. What can I tell you? And so we're going to go ahead, page 394, and we'll start at the next one. It says, on page 394, you'll see Torah service. And right from the beginning, you'll stop it about 4 minutes, and I'll cue you. 394, so this is Alisa Pomerantz, and I think Borough Park. we're going to cut at this point because this is where we take the Torah out. So next time, we'll do the Shema with them. Beautiful rendition. Page 398, go ahead in front of the ark, with the Be'an Arachetz. Be'an Arachetz, V'lishmei Kadisha, Kadisha Yakira, Ana Amatush Bechan, Be'an Arachetz, Be'an Arachetz, V'lishmei Kadisha, Kadisha Yakira, Ana Amatush Bechan, Yehrava Kadamach, Detiftach libi beoraita, V'tashlim mishalin delibi, V'liba dechol amach Yisrael, Letavu chayin v'lish laham. Amen. Page 398. We continue with the Shema. And repeat after me. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo. Garelu l'Adonai iti, oner ha'om ema shemo, yachdav lecho Adonai, ha'gedola v'ha'gevura, v'ha'tiferet, v'ha'netzach v'ha'hod, ki chov ha'shamayim uva'aretz, ki chov ha'shamayim uva'aretz, lecha Adonai ha'mamlecha, V'amit nasei l'chol l'rosh romemu, romemu, Adonai Eloheinu, v'hishtachavu, v'hishtachavu, l'adam raglav kadoshu, romemu, romemu, Adonai Eloheinu, v'hishtachavu, v'hishtachavu l'ha'kadshohu, Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu. Okay, may be seated. Our reading is on. Page 99. 99. Joe, this should have been next week's portion. You know why? It says page 99. Okay. Well, next week, I won't say why. Next week looks. No, it says, yes, next week. Oh, it's 2 weeks, 2 weeks. That's good. 2 weeks from now. Okay. So, we are in the portion of Toldot. We're starting on page 99, chapter 27, verse 28. So, it's Toldot Yitzchak, and this is the story of Isaac. And then what does it say? It's how Isaac gets 2 sons. That's Toldot, the account. It also means generations of Isaac. So to a certain extent, we become significant through the progeny we live. Isaac is important because of his progeny. All right? It's like in Arabic society. How are you named? By your son. Abu Amram, Abu Musa, right? It's your son, you are the father of. That is your pride, that you are creating a new generation, right? So, Toldot Yitzchak. Isaac is to be known by his progeny. Well, we get 2. We know the story. They're 2 twins. They fight in the mother's womb. One comes out first. The other one comes out holding by the hand. The first one is ruddy, red-haired Edom, hence a connection with the people of Edom, Esav. And then the other one holding on to the heel. The word for heel is Ekev, Yaakov. And we realize there's a play on names that goes throughout the story of Jacob around this world. Ekev, to grab by the heel, or La'akov, which means to go around. And so we will find this play on words. We know the famous account. Isaac is the mighty, powerful hunter. Esav is this powerful hunter, Sagid, the hunt, the act of the hunt. And our rabbi said, hunt. Every time we come across a hunter, there's an implication of something of hunting people, not just animals. Like Nimrod is a mighty hunter. Right? And Jews tend to look at hunters, historically, we look down on hunters because you're taking what's not yours. Shepherd, you raise, you work with the sheep, you eat the sheep, you've worked with them. 50-50. Okay. But the deer is out there in the field. What have you done for the deer? Nothing. And you go and take the deer. So the hunter represents someone violent, a thief. So, but we see this contrast. Isaac, who is the very mild-mannered, right? Isaac is so much quieter than Abraham. And he wants the first son. Now, what's Isaac's own experience? Isaac is the second son. And who was the son that had suffered when Isaac was born? Was the first son. And somehow, there may be that Isaac has this identification. I don't want my first son to go through what I saw my brother go through, which we're having trouble identifying. Or is it that the soft, mild-mannered person wishes he had that power? That may be the other motive. Then there's Rivka. Well, they're two twins. In the case of Sarah, we could understand Isaac is her son, and Ishmael is the other woman's son. We can understand this. I'm jealous for my child. But Rivka, she's got two kids. How can she play the game of one against the other? They're both her kids. But Rivka comes and looks at what was her family background, goes back, and her family, they're not exactly honest, straightforward people. Laban, later on we find out what happens, right? A trickster, a conniver, her brother. So although they're Abram's family, there's certain things. I don't want the one who's going to lead be anywhere like that. So between the two, Esav Heftzai, the man who's the hunter, and Yaakov, Ishtam Yoshev Halim. More simple person, Yoshev Halim, dweller among the tents, right? He's raising his flock, raising his herd, whatever it is. That's the kind that I believe will inherit. So Rebecca has a better perspective from where she's coming from than Isaac has. That's how we can understand it. So, of course, we come to the part that we're going to be reading where she dresses Isaac up. You're familiar. Jacob up with the goat skins, comes in. His father doesn't see very well and feels the skin, hairy like the firstborn, and says, okay, here's the blessing. Then comes in Esav right after that, and he says, okay, bless me. But I said, I just gave you the blessing. You walked out the door this second. I said, what do you mean? And then he listens and he looks at him carefully. He said, oh my gosh, I had the wrong son. They both cry. And then he gives him a blessing. And so now we can look, what's the blessing though? Very interesting blessing, because Jacob, when Isaac blesses Jacob, and then he blesses Esav, it's almost the same. The only one is, and even his blessing to Esav, you'll see, is a reprimand of Jacob, Yaakov. What does he say? To Jacob, he says, I will give you, let me give it here. Okay, and here's the blessing. It says, the smell of my son is the smell of a field, right? Because the wildlife, right? So God give thee of the dew of heaven and the fat places of the earth, right? Tala shamayim, shmanei aretz. Let peoples serve you and nations bow down to you and be Lord over thy brethren. Well, there's only one brother. It means all the family. He's going to be the Lord. Let thy mother's sons bow down to you, which means the other son and descendants bow down to you. Cursed be one who curses you, and blessed be one that blesses you. Well, that's Abraham's blessing. That's the blessing that Abraham got. So he's giving that one now to Isaac, to Jacob. And then to Esav, very similar. He says, well, I don't have any blessings left. He says, okay, you got to have something. As a father, you can't leave your son without anything. And so listen carefully. Even though I've made him the Lord over you, I made him the boss. Wait a minute. It says, now, behold the fat places of the earth. Right? Mishmaneha. It's very similar to what Jacob gets. And the dew of the heavens, Tal Shamayim. Very similar blessing. You're going to be a man of war. You're going to survive. It'll be force and violence. But, watch this. Jacob is going to be the boss? No. V'tered, right? Tarid uparakta alo me'al tzavarecha. You will break away from him and become independent of him. Oh, okay. So, Esau will not be subject to Jacob, even though that was in the first blessing. Notice that, correction. Then there's a third blessing. Third blessing is a third setup, where Rebecca now knows that Esau is ready to kill his brother. She's got to protect them both. Because she doesn't want the son to be killed. She doesn't want the other son to be a murderer. So let's get Jacob out of here as fast as possible. Esau is married a Hittite woman. She comes to Jacob. She complains and says, I can't stand these Hittite daughters. Get Jacob out of here as fast as you can to my family and let him bring a good girl from hometown. To which Jacob does, and he gives him a blessing. Now look at the blessing. This time, it's a better blessing. What do I mean by that? This is the blessing of Abraham. And that's on page 101. God bless you and make you fruitful and multiply, be a congregation of peoples, right? A mighty peoples. And the blessings of Abraham to thy seed, you may inherit the land of your sojourning. So that this is the blessing of Abraham. You will inherit the land. We're no longer talking about which son will be ruler over which son. Esau gets his territory. It is the other side of the Jordan River, Transjordan. That's to Esau. To Jacob, Yaakov, the west side of the Jordan River, right? They used to say, Shte gadot liyadein, the Jordan has two banks. It was a claim by Jabotinsky that we need the whole land. They said, no. That which is on the other side, rightfully to Esau. That which is on this side, rightfully to Jacob. And then, of course, Esau also learns from this, and he takes the daughter of Ishmael to be his wife, because he realizes, right, he's not, as we see, Esau himself is not altogether a rotten fellow. We find that out later on. So that's the theme. That's the theme of the reading. Let's go ahead then. I want to move through, because I'd like to wrap up quickly. Yeah. Oh, absolutely, yes. The Philistia, yeah. Because Isaac spends a time in the land of the Philistines, just like Abraham did. And it's similar, the sister account and so on. But it's doubtful that they're actually Philistine. It's a historic retrospect to explain to the audience where we are. Because if I said just Gaza, my audience who's listening to this years later won't know. So I have to use the term Eretz Plishtim, just like I will say Vaknani az ba'aretz, because I'm telling my audience that's the time when the Canaanites lived in the land of Israel, because no longer Canaanites. So we use those terms. But later, we know that that's the area, the whole coast from Egypt, from the Nile, all the way up to halfway to Haifa, is the area of settlement of the Greek. It's the island peoples from Crete and the islands around there, as there's the collapse of the Minoan civilization for a variety of reasons. They come, they invade. Peleshet, Philistia, associated with the word Polesh, meaning an invader. That's a Hebraicization of what may have been their term. We don't know their original term. We don't have their language. It's interesting. The original languages. There are some scripts that they're more, and again, I'm not sure what language they're actually using in the scripts that we have left. But very well developed. They have iron, which makes them a powerful force, because the other people don't have that. At that time, that area is more fertile. It still is fertile land. It still has water sources. Because, again, there are no rivers per se, but I think there's underground aquifers come when there's winter rains, it comes down, it settles, and they can get that. Yeah, but by digging wells, that's part of the stories. And both Abraham and Isaac had this problem about digging wells to get to the water sources. So let's go ahead then. Page 99. I just want to go ahead because I have a speaker and I have to move through. Okay, that's a whole discussion by itself. I'll leave it for another day. Okay, quick.
My father said, no one's over guard. That's where we wear ephod or a hat.
Yeah, that's an important. That's the significance. Yeah, that is the intention. Well, go ahead. That's a topic for by itself. All right. Do you want a kippah or a hat, or do you need both, or none? Go ahead. Let's go on and page. I started to say page 99. 99. Here we go. Okay. We're starting with the verse 28. Yeah, hold on. Yeah, we're here. It was the, there we go. It's problem is a long chapter without any breaks in between. Okay. Call him up.
Isaac and Moshe.
Isaac ben Moshe, verses 28 through 30. 28 through 30.
Baruch
Adonai Ba'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hagavah L'Olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher B'Habanu Mikol Ha'ami V'Talanu Et Torah. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Vayomer Reach Beni כריח שדה אשר ברכו אדוני ויתן לך אלוהים מטל השמיים ושמני הארץ ורוב דגן ותירוש ויעבדוך עמים וישתחוו לך לאומים הווה גבר לאחיך וישתחוו לך בני אמך ארוך ארור מברכך ברוך היא כאשר קהילה וכי כאשר קהילה יצחק לברך את יעקב ויהי אך יצא יעקב מאת פני יצחק אביו ועשיו אחיו בא מצדו.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'hilei olam natahenu b'chirenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten HaTorah.
Amen. Ya'amod Bachor Yehudanach ben David Shaga Levi.
Baruch Hu Ezodanah Mavorach.
Baruch Haneh Baruch Haneh.
Baruch Hanam Baruch L'Olam Voed. Baruch Adonai Melech Haolam Asher B'Chabonu Mikol Ha'amim Natan Lanu Es Torusoi. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. ואז גם הוא מטעמים ויבא לאביו ויאמר לאביו יקום אבי ויאכל מצד בנו בעבור תברכני נפשך ויאמר לו יצחק אביו מי אתה ויאמר אני בנך בקורך עשיו ויחרד יצחק חרדה גדולה עד מאוד ויאמר מי איפה הוא צד ציד ויבא לי ואכל מכל בטרם תבוא וברכהו וגם ברוך יהיה גם ברוך יהיה.
Baruch Adonai Melech Haolam Asher Natan Lanu Torah Emet Chai U'Nata B'Sachenu. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Number 3. Continue verses 34 through 37.
בורכו את אדוני המבורך,
ברוך ה' ברוך
ברוך
הבד.
אדוני בורך לעולם ועד.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד, ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים ונתן לנו את תורתו, ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
אמן.
כי שמע עשיו את דברי אביו ויצעק צעקה גדולה ומרה עד מאוד ואומר לאביו ברכני גם אני אבי ואומר באחיך במרמה ויקח ברכתך ויאמר אחי קרא שמו יעקב יעקבני זה פעמיים את ברכתי לקח והנה אתה לקח ברכתי ויאמר הלא הצלת לי ברכה ויען יצחק ויאמר לעשיו הן גביר שמתיו לך ואת כל אחיו נתתי לו לעבדים ודגן ותירוש שמחתיו ולך ואיפה מה אעשה בני.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת בחיי עולם נדע בתוכנו, ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. We continue 38 through 40. 38 through 40.
תעמוד.
תעמוד.
ברכה בת חיים ומנוחה. ברכו את אדוני המבורך.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
אמן. ואומר עשיו אל אביו, הברכה אחת היא לך אבי, ברכני גם אני אבי, ויישא עשיו קולו ויבק, ויען יצחק אבי ואומר אליו, הנה כשמשמני הארץ יהיה מושבך, ומטל השמיים מעל, ועל חרבך תחיה, ואת אחיך תעבוד, והיה כאשר תריד ופרקת עליו מעל צוואריך.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
אמן.
אמן. יעמוד
אברהם
אברהם
הרש.
בן הרש.
אוקיי.
אמן.
ברוך את אדוני המבורך,
ברוך ה' ברוך הבד.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד, ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר בחר בנו מכל הימין ונתן לנו את תורתו, ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
אמן.
אמן.
ויסתום עשיו את יעקב על הברכה אשר ברכו אביו, ומעשיו בליבו יקרבו ימי אבל אביו והרגה את יעקב אחי, ויגד לרבקה את דברי עשיו בנה הגדול, ותשלח תקרא ליעקב בנה הקטן, ותאמר אליו, הנה עשיו אחיך מתנחם לך להרגך, ואתה בני שמע בקולי וקום, ברח לך אל לבן אחי הרנה, וישבת עמו ימים אחדים, עד אשר תשוב חמת אחיך, עד שוב אף אחיך ממך, ושכח את אשר עשית לו, ושלחתי לקחתיך משם, למה אשקל גם שניכם ביום אחד. ותאמר רבקה אל יצחק, קצתי בחיי מפני בנות חטא, אם לקח יעקב אישה מבנות חטא כאל מבנות הארץ, למה לי חיים?
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו, ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen.
Rachel.
Chapter 6 Aliyah, verses 1 through 4. Yeah. Question.
Why don't you keep the towels down? Why'd you take it off?
It's my sweater.
Oh,
Take my, רחל, הנה.
My question is, back, it's going back a little bit. When
Oh, so the Hebrew, yeah. Yeah, he says, it means it will come when it happens. Because if here, let me. Yeah. So the Hebrew says Vayistom Esav et Yaakov. It uses the word Vayistom, which really usually isn't to be something is sealed, blocked up. They translate it as he hates him, and then ala bracha. Yeah, and then he says in his heart, Yikravu, which means the future, when it will happen. Yeah, it means that it will let in the sense of when it will happen, that there will be a mourning for my father, which means after my father's death. Yeah, then I'll kill him. The Hebrew doesn't use that. I see that. Yeah, that's one of the problems with English. It's just Yikruvu. It says when it will happen. Yeah, but there's another problem. Yeah. What did you see the other problem in there?
I don't know if it's the same problem I see. It's also when his mother's talking to him. You know, there's a tendency to want to say that he was innocent in this whole thing. And she says, from what you have done to your brother.
Yeah. She's put him up to it.
Right, but then it goes back to the question of, I can tell you what you would do, but the final analysis, you have the capacity to decide what is right and what is wrong. And he didn't. He chose.
Because he already had the birthright. So in a way, he knew that it was his. So he's letting his mother guide him, but he knows it's his. Anyway, good point. But let me tell you something interesting. Here's a question. Nobody ever saw this. Esau says in his heart, I will kill him. Rivka hears him say.
Right, so I was coming back to
Okay.
how does she know that he said?
In fact, it's not Rivka says, well, you got Rivka. Somebody told Rivka.
Right, but who? He didn't say it out loud.
A little bird.
He never spoke out loud.
Yeah, good question. Good question. Now, it could mean like he whispered it. It could also be it could mean that he just said to himself, but somebody overheard him. That's also possible. That would be the way to understand it, because otherwise, yeah, it doesn't make sense. Unless Rivka has a mother's intuition.
He says in his heart. He never
Yeah.
says. He doesn't even say to himself.
Very good. It says Veileber el libo. Very good question. Bilibo. It's in his heart. Yeah, he says in his heart. He's not.
He never vocalizes it.
She's a mother. She's a mother. She knows what her kid's thinking. Yeah. She watches him. I think that's enough. If the mother's aware of her kids, she knows what's what. Good. That's a good question. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Rachel bat Rivka.
But Yitzchak.
Bat Shmuel ורבקה. Rachel bat Shmuel.
Rachel,
But
Shmuel
but Shmuel,
Rivka.
but Rivka.
So verses 1 through 4 on page 101.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך.
Baruch Haneh Baruch Haneh.
ברוך אדוני מבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים, ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. Okay. ויקרא יצחק אל יעקב ויברך אותו ויצווהו ויאמר לו לא תיקח אישה מבנות כנען קום לך לך פדנה ארם ביתה בתואל אבי עמך וקח לך משם אישה מבנות לבן אחי עמך ואל שדי יברך אותך ויברכך וירבך ביתה לקהל עמים ויתן לך את ברכת אברהם ברכת אברהם לך וזרעך איתך לרשתך את הארץ מגוריך אשר נתן אלוהים לאברהם.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת, וחי עולם נתן מתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. But also in this there's a suspicion that maybe Isaac actually does understand what's going on. He plays blind, it may be because he doesn't want to recognize what he has to do. But he knows what's happening. That's also suspicious.
Isaac knows exactly what he did and what was going on. He's not this is someone who was well taught in the world in his home.
Yeah.
Unlike his brother, he was taught the book learning side.
Should be, yeah.
Understood. My other point here is, Rebecca tells him beforehand, you are to go to my family's home. Then she goes and tells the husband, oh, I don't want my son to marry off these people. And then but it doesn't say she tells him what to tell her husband what to tell her son. But he tells him exactly what
Right.
she has already instructed him to do. So it's like, whose fault?
Well, because that's what his father did. His father said to his servant, don't bring back a local girl.
Right.
So he knows why his wife came to him. He knows why. So he's going to have his son do the same.
Right.
Yeah.
But she's the one who first tells.
Yeah, so she sets the situation. What we think is, like you said, he's more aware than he lets on. He doesn't want to. He likes this kid. But he knows it's not the right one. So he's going along with the conspiracy. And I think that is a willing conspirator against his will. That's the way to look at it.
She doesn't want to lose. She said she doesn't want to lose both of them.
Right, because if one kills the other, then the other one's liable for death, yeah.
She says, until your brother forgets. Why would she think that he's going to forget?
Eventually he does. We know that.
He doesn't forget. He forgets.
He doesn't say anything.
He doesn't forget.
That's close. Good enough. As long as he doesn't kill him, that's the main point. That's a good question. Continue, page 101.
Okay, it's the seventh.
Verses 8
Yeah.
through to the end. 5.
No, call on Yoni.
Yeah,
Oh, he's online.
Yeah, call
Yoni's online.
yeah.
Tell Yoni to get up.
Yoni, you're online?
Sure am.
Okay, open your mic and
Yoni.
we'll call you up to the blessings.
Are you up?
Jonathan Yitzhak Ben Don.
I sent Yoni a message, tell him to open his mic.
He's unmuted. Okay,
Unmuted.
all right.
I'm not on mute.
I don't hear you. Well, go ahead, call him up officially and then...
Okay, yeah.
Yamot, Yonaben.
Yitzhak Ben Don. You don't hear me?
Okay, it's always good. Okay, we're going to give you, Yoni, we're going to give you the honors. Okay, we're going to give you the honors. We don't hear you, but we're going to give you the honors. Okay, so we'll say it for you. It's not coming through. So, Amen. וישלח יצחק את יעקב וילך פדן ארם אל לבן בן בתואל הרמי אחי רבקה אם יעקב ועשיו ויה עשיו כי ברך יצחק את יעקב שלח אות. I'm looking at the wrong page. I'm not supposed to look from there. I'm supposed to look from there. Okay. It was too easy to read.
Danielle, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Hi, Doug.
Hi.
Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
וישלח יצחק את יעקב וילך פדן ארם אל לבן בן בתואל הרמי אחי רבקה עם יעקב ועשיו וירא עשיו כי ברך יצחק את יעקב ושלח אותו פדן ארם לקחת לו משם אישה בברכו איתו ויצב עליו לאמור לא תיקח אישה מבנות כנען וישמע יעקב אל אביו ואל אמו וילך פדן ארם וירא עשיו כי רעות בנות כנען בעיני יצחק אביו וילך ועשיו אל ישמעאל ויקח את מוחלת בת ישמעאל בן אברהם אחות נוויות על נשב לו לאישה.
ברוך אדוני מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת חי עם נתן בסופנו ברוך אתה אדוני נותן הכל.
Amen.
Okay, let's do Mishabel.
Okay, yes. We're making Mishabel for those who are ill.
Okay.
And let's join in together with the Mishabel. Can we put it up on the screen? Our Mishabel, our prayer list. Those who are ill. I see Danielle. Danielle joined us. Welcome.
Hi, Shabbat
And so we
everybody.
put that on the screen.
Nice to see you guys.
We pray for the health and well-being of our dear friends. משבח אבותינו אברהם יצחק ויעקב צריך כרחליה ורפא את החולים את holy one bless the ancestors Abraham, Isaac and Jacob, Sarah, Becca, Rachel, Leah. Bless and heal. Joe Alexander, Michael Kelsey, Bonnie Durant, Harriet Levins, Mason Manya, Barbara Mormon, Judy Alkali, Richard Zeller, Judy Smith, Samuel Smith, Robert Roger Rose, Rachel Lalo, Susan Tucker, Shirley Marco. Raise the screen just a little bit for us. Raise the page. Yeah. That's too far. There we go. Liva Batsara, Herb Mormon, Hannah Sarah, Leah Batel, Hannah Sarah Bakela, Sophie, Judy Alkali, Hannah Batsara, Rena, Seppi, Alan Wayland, Lavan Masha Sarah, Jeff Fraser, Hannah Batsara, Jason, Nissan, all those affected by COVID-19 virus. Judy, I hope you're doing fine. Doing well. And we continue, please, the names.
Stephen Moshe, Ben Moshe,
Ben Wolf.
Esther Sima Halev,
Carl Flags.
Adam
Flags. Steve Gordisha, and Ron Rothman. Rachel Batura, and David Asherson, Wendy Keller, all those who are ill. May the Holy One send them healing body and mind to them to the house of Israel. Amen. Dr. Norman, you had a name, someone who was ill now? Natalie. Yeah. Right, we add her to our list of prayers. And this all join in the Shabbat together. We chant today. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing. And let us say, Amen. Mishaberach imoteinu, mekon ha'abraham avoteinu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Amen.
Yiskadav, Shemeirah, Amlich Malchutei, Bechayecha, Ov Yamecha, Uchaye Bechol Beis Yisrael, Bahagala, Yubiznam Kaharim, Vimru, Amen. Yehesh Meirah B'Mevora, Ve'olam ve'ol Maya Yispora, V'yishtabach, V'yispuar, V'yisramam, V'yisnaseh, V'yishadar, V'yisaleh, V'yisalo, Shemei Dekolisha Berichu, Ve'elam in Kol Berchata V'shirata, Tush Bechata V'nechemata, Da'amilam V'olma V'emru. Amen. He's going after you.
Dr. Norman, do them after. Please do us the honor.
Yamod Yitzchak Ben Yahu Maftir.
And starting on page 101, last 3 lines by Yishmael Yaakov. Right over here.
Baruch hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Hanam
Baruch Lo'olam
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam. Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu et Torato. Baruch Ata Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Vayishma Yaakov el aviv el imo, vayelech padan ha'aram, vayar Esav ki ra'ot banot Canaan, בעיני יצחק אביו, וילך עשיו אל ישמעאל, ייקח את מחלת בת ישמעאל בן אברהם, אחות נוויות, אל נשב לו לאישה.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו את תורתו תורת אמת וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. Strong arms.
Come on.
Strong arms. You in good shape?
Very good. I don't know how good.
Okay, lift it up. Move it down a little. There, now. וזאת התורה אשר נושא לפני בני ישראל ואני אדוני. Go sit down there. עץ חיים היא
למה חזיקים בה תומכי המאושר דרכנו בכל נתיבותיה שלום דרכיה דרכנו בכל נתיבותיה שלום. Okay, we are the Haftarah is taken from Malachi. Malachi is the last of the Nevi'im, the prophets, and this is the opening chapter. And the connection with the reading is that the prophet sets up the contrast between Jacob and Esav. That Jacob was the loved one of God and Esav the cursed one of God. And then he goes on to denounce the descendants of Jacob for not fulfilling their obligations. This is now the time where the temple has been rebuilt. They've returned to the land of Israel. They're not fulfilling their obligations. And he looks for a day that will be a righteous priest, the law of truth in his mouth, who would lead the people. He would be the messenger of God. Malach Adonai. The name of the prophet is Malachi. So he sees maybe himself as the speaker of righteousness to guide the people. Interesting, the connection, Edom later becomes associated with Rome, ancient Rome, and then when ancient Rome is no longer Roman and becomes Catholic, it becomes associated with the Christian world. And Ishmael becomes associated with the Muslim world. In fact, specifically the Muslims identify themselves through Ishmael. They elevate Ishmael in the writings. But which Catholic Church never elevated Esav in their writings. But it's an interesting contrast. Whatever happened to the Edomites? Well, we do know that later on, the people who lived in Edom, Edomians, who may not have been actually the original Edomites, but the area is named after that, became Jews.
Okay.
They became Jews. The Maccabees made them become Jews, the descendants of the Maccabees. So ultimately, the Edomites, or their heirs to that territory, were absorbed into the Jewish people. That's the actual circle. I see our guest speakers joined us. Okay. Emanuel, Shabbat Shalom, or Shavuot Tov. Okay.
For me, it's Shabbat Tov. For you, it's Shabbat Shalom.
Very good. So we're going to wrap up our service quickly. So we're going to start. We're going to wrap up. We're going to have to wrap up. Page 102. Go ahead, Dr. Norman.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר בחר בנביאים טובים ורצה בדבריהם הנאמרים באמת ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בתורה ובמשה עבדו ובישראל עמו ובנביאי האמת וסדר מסע דבר אדוני אל ישראל ביד מלאכי אהבתי אתכם אמר אדוני ואמרתם כמה אהבתנו הלא אך עשיו ליעקב נאום אדוני ואוהב את יעקב ואת עשיו שנאתי ואשים את חריי שממיו ואת נחלתו לתנות מדבר כי תאמר אדום ראש אשור נשוב ונבנה חרבות כאמר אדוני צבאות המה יבנו ואני לחרום וקראו לכם גבול רשעה והעם אשר זעם אדוני עד עולם. בעיניכם תראינה ואתם תאמרו יגדל אדוני מעל לגבול ישראל. כן יכבד אב ועבד אדוני, ואם אב אני אהיה כבודו, ואם אדונים אני אהיה מוראי. אמר אדוני צבאות לכם הכהנים בוזי שמי, ואמרתם במה בוזינו את שמך. מנשיאים על מזבחי לכם מגואל, ואמרתם במה גרנו אותה. ואמרכם שולחן אדוני נבזהו, וכי תסניס ראשון איבל לזבוח אין רע, וכי תגישו פיסח וחולה אין רע. הרכיבהו נא לפתיך הירסך ויהיסה פניך, אמר אדוני צבאות. ועתה חלו נא פני פניאל, והנני בידכם הייתה זאת היסה מכם פנים, אמר אדוני צבאות. מי גם בכם ויזכור דלתיים, ולא תאירו מזבחי חינם. אין לי חפץ בכם, אמר אדוני צבאות, ומנחה לא ארצה מידיכם. כי ממזרח שמש ועד מבואו גדול שמי, בגויים ובכל מקום מוכתר. מוגש לשמי ומנחה טהורה, כי גדול שמי בגויים, אמר אדוני צבאות. ואתם מחללים אותו, ואמרכם שולחן אדוני מגואל הוא וניבוז נזווה אוכלו. ואמרתם הנה מטלה והפכתם אותו, אמר אדוני צבאות. והבאתם גזול ואת הפיסח ואת החולה, והבאתם את המנחה הארצה אותה מידיכם, אמר אדוני. ברור נוכל ויש בעדרו זכר, ונודר וזבח וזובח מושחת לאדוני. כי מלך גדול אני, אמר אדוני צבאות, ושמי נורא בגויים. ועתה עליכם המצווה הזאת הכהנים, אם לא תשמעו ולא תשימו על לב לתת כבוד לשמי, אמר אדוני צבאות. ושילחתי בכם את המארה והוריתי את ברכותיכם, וגם ארוכתיך, כי אינכם שמים על לב. הנני נועל לכם את הזרע וזריתי פרש על פניכם, פרש הגיכם ונשא אתכם אליו. וידעתם כי שילחתי עליכם את המצווה הזאת להיות בריתי את לוי, אמר אדוני צבאות. בריתי הייתה איתו החיים השלום, ואתנם לא מורא, ויראני ומפני שמי נחת הוא. תורת אמת הייתה בפיהו, ועוולה לא נמצא בשפתיו. ושלום מישור הלך איתי, ורבים השיב מעון. כי שופטי כהן ישמרו, דעת ותורה יבקשו מפיהו, כי מלאך אדוני צבאות הוא. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, צור כל העולמים, צדיק בכל הדורות, האל הנאמן האומר ועושה, המדבר ומקיים שכל דבריו אמת וצדק. נאמן אתה הוא, אדוני אלוהינו, ונאמנים דברך ודבר אחד מדבריך, אכל לא ישוב ריקם, כי אל מלך נאמן ורחמן אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הנאמן בכל דבריו, רחם על ציון כי היא בית חיינו, ולעלוות נפש תושיע במהרה בימינו, ברוך אתה אדוני, משמח ציון בבניה, שמחנו אדוני אלוהינו, באליהו הנביא עבדך, ומלכות בית דוד משיחך, במהרה יבוא ויגל ליבנו, על כיסאו לא ישב זר, ולא נחלו עוד אחרים את כבודו, כי בשם קודשך נשבעת לו, שלא יכבה נרו לעולם ועד, ברוך אתה אדוני מגן דוד, על התורה ועל העבודה ועל הנביאים ועל יום השבת הזה, שנתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו לקדושה ולמנוחה, לכבוד ולתפארת. על הכל אדוני אלוהינו אנחנו מודים לך ומברכים אותך, יתברך שמך בפי כל חי תמיד לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת.
Yes, God. Thank you. Thank you. We're going to go ahead this week also. We have Veterans Day, originally Armistice Day, the end of World War I. We hope that was the war to end all wars, and then there was World War II, so it was turned into Veterans Day. We want to honor our veterans. I have this recording of Kate Smith from World War II, and that will act as our prayer for the United States. And the Shabbat.
Presenting to you the star of our program, Miss Kate Smith.
Hello, everybody. It is my happy privilege to introduce a new song, God Bless America. While the storm clouds gather far across the sea, let us swear allegiance a land that's free. Let us all be grateful for a land so
that contribute to all our veterans. For the past 75 years, there's been, with on and off, of course, a kind of Pax Americana, peace under the auspices of Americans worldwide, even with the Cold War. We have not seen a conflagration of the scope of World War II in these 75 years. We hope that Pax Americana is not coming to an end. That's our prayer. And now for the people of Israel, they had a miracle this week, which was they passed the budget. Now, this is a government to which everybody can't stand, right? They're all opposing. You have left, you have center, you have right, and you have Muslim, Arab. And they passed the budget. So, in praise of Israel, let's join in our prayers, and Avinu Shabbat Shemayim, let's join in together. And get the words up. Avinu Shabbat Shemayim, to Yisrael v'go'alo, Barech et Medinat Yisrael, Eshit Tzmicha Gulatenu, Hagen Aleha Bevrat Chasdecha, Ufros Aleha Leha, Sukat Shelamecha, Shnach Ocha V'Amicha, She'asareh V'yatzeha, Taknem Beitzah Tova Milfanecha, strengthen the hands of those who defend our holy land. Avinu Shabbat Shemayim, deliver them and crown their efforts with triumph. Avinu Shabbat Shemayim, so Yisrael v'go'alo, bless our land with peace, O God, inhabitants with lasting joy, and let us say, Amen. Avinu Shabbat Shemayim, so Yisrael v'go'alo, Barech Medinat Yisrael, Reshit Tzmicha Gulatenu, Hagen Aleha Bevrat Chasdecha, Ufros Aleha, Sukat Shelamecha, V'noma Amen, Amen. And we're going to return the Torah to the Ark, begin to wrap up the service, so we can come to our topic for this Shabbat. So let's go to page 422. Yeah, hallelujah. Take the Torah out, pick it up, and bring it around. Page 422, please rise. Ya'alelu et Shem Adonai, ki neskav Shemo levado, hodo al eretz v'shamayim, vayarem keren le'amo, tehila lecho chasihidav, Livnei Yisrael am kerovo. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Page 424. Mizmor leDavid. Havul Adonai b'nei Elim. Havul Adonai kavod ba'os. Havul Adonai kavod shemo. Ishnach havul Adonai b'hadrat kodesh. K'mayim el mayim el kavod yirim. Adonai mayim rabim. Kol Adonai ba'akach. Kol Adonai behadar, Kol Adonai shover arazim, Vaishaber Adonai et havanon, Yakidin k'megavon v'siryon, k'mo v'neimim, Kol Adonai chotzev lavodesh, Kol Adonai yachim midbar, Yachil Adonai midbar kadesh, Kol Adonai yachol layalot, Sof yorech kulo omer kavod, Adonai lama bunya shavayeshev Adonai melech leolam Adonai oz li'amo yitein Adonai varech et amo v'shalom. Page 426. U'v'nucho yomam et chayim hi lama chazikim ba tomcheha me'usha Neracheha dachenam, chol netivoteh shalom, ashiveinu Adonai, elecha v'nashuva, chadesh, chadesh yameinu, kekedem. And we're going to continue now, wrap up the service with Enke Eloheinu. And that is page 508. Enke Eloheinu. Let's all join in. The regular old-fashioned way. Enke Eloheinu, Enke Adonenu, Enke Malkeinu, Enke Moshienu, Mich Eloheinu, Mich Adonenu, Michemakeinu, Michmoshienu, Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adonenu, Nodel Makeinu, Nodel Moshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu, Atahu Shektiru Avotenu, Lefanecha Eketoret Hasamim. Page 510, Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, la tegiru la liotzeir breshit, shelo asanu kiyeh haratzot, velo samanu k'mishpachat adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, v'gor aleinu kechoham onam, v'anachnu korim, u'mishtachavim, u'modim, lifnei melech, malchei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Shehu Noteh Shamayim v'Yosed Haaretz, Mashav Yikara b'Shamayim Mimal, U'Shchinatu Zo b'Gabei Meromim, U'Eloheinu ein od, Ne'memakeinu efes ulato, Ka'katu b'Torato, Yadata Yom v'Ashivata el levavecha, Ki Adonai hu Elohim, b'shamayim mimal, v'al haaretz mitachateinu. V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz, bayom ahu yeh Adonai echad, O Shema echad. You may be seated. Please put up the names of the yard site lists. Okay. Yeah. Oh, okay. So we call those whose loved ones passed away, those loved ones who passed away this year: Irma Smith, Miriam Ilani, mother of Dr. Isaac Norman, Elaine Goldsmith, Margaret Sadok, and the yard states of loved ones lost this one: Rachel Mailman and Judith Bat Meir, Mary, and also the family members of Murray Maiden, that is his father Isaac Maiden, and his mother Elsie Maiden, and his late wife Hannah Liavata Maiden. May their memories be for blessing, the bonds be the social the bond of eternal life. Those who are reciting the morning Scottish, please recite with me. It's found on page 512. Amen. 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 May be seated. We're going to now go to our theme of this Shabbat. And so we'll go ahead and close that down. And We'll do Adon after our presentation. Next week, we're honoring Bill and Corey Oppenheim. They got married. They're coming back from their honeymoon, and we'll have a luncheon in their honor. We're honoring some of our other younger couples who will be with us also. And Cantor Stacy Morse will join us. She'll lead us with sing-alongs for the service. Rather than my boring speeches, she'll sing, and we'll feel very happy. How's that? Okay, everybody's in agreement. And then the following week, birthday, Shabbat for Joe Alexander. And we have some surprises. I'm not going to say what it is. So now you want to come to find out what it is that we're cooking. Yeah, see if you can come. Yoni, can you hear? If you can come on Shabbat.
Yeah, you hear me? I will be there for Joe's birthday.
Yes.
You know, no matter what.
We'll save a plate for you.
Good.
Okay. So, yeah, and Danielle also.
Hopefully
Yeah.
before.
So listen, here we go. So go ahead. I want you to put pin the screen on our guest speaker, Emanuel Shahaf. And if you can, Emanuel, can open the microphone. There we go. And if you can pin screen, there we go. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Okay. So this is our guest, Emanuel Shahaf. And I found him indirectly. It was interestingly enough, I found the name in an article in the Jewish Journal some time ago about outreach to younger Jews and also non-Jews, written by, it was, turns out, the daughter of my second cousin, so I know very well. And then there was another article about something called Federation, written by her and Emanuel Shahaf, also in the Jewish Journal. I said, well, this is a good topic. So I had an interview with with Rebecca Silfan, that was her name, during Yom Kippur. We put it on our program. And then I said, let's have this discussion. This is very interesting. So I'm going to let Emanuel tell us more about it. But to say some things in common, we're both Yekes, both German-born, Deutsche Kulturkreise, German culture. It's something that I left when I was 3. He was a teenager, young adult when he left, and came to Israel in 1972. And he published a book about his background. It was a very lively book. I'll tell you where to find it. When I read through it and I see that his father and my father were neighbors. Where? In the same prison in Berlin, Brandenburg, Zuchthaus. It was under the Nazis, and odds are that they knew each other. They were both in under the same scam that the Nazis used to capture people they didn't want. So anyway, so he studied aeronautics at the Technion and in the United States at the Rensselaer Polytech, his Bachelor of Science, Master of Science, and Advanced Studies. And then for 79 to 86, he was in the engineering staff officer at the Israeli Air Force. And then in his biography, he says, officially, he joined the office of the Prime Minister in Tel Aviv. It turns out when you say the office of the Prime Minister, you mean you're a spook. Is that the right word? Right? From John Le Carre. Right? Okay. So security conscious way, because you don't want to say that he's worked in intelligence officer as an intelligence officer in the Mossad. And I guess, I don't know, you didn't have any escapades like in the TV series Tehran. Not quite that.
I didn't write about them.
Okay. Okay. But interesting stories, interesting things. And like I read in the story, everybody in Mossad is known as Aleph, Bet, Gimel, right? ABC. I don't know what handle you had. We won't reveal it, but it's been enough years, it's probably okay. But tell me, everybody in the Mossad writes a book about their experience and spill the beans. The last one was the last chief of the Mossad. I don't know why they do that, spill all the beans, the secrets. Okay, but you didn't. I looked at it. Didn't spill any big secrets. So you went on then, finished your stint of service and went to business relations in Indonesia. That's out of your experience in the Mossad. And then also involved yourself with the Labor Party, and you've been in that since the 1990s. And then in 2008 to 2012, you've been in the Central Committee. You were chief of staff for Shelley Yachimovich when she was running for campaign as the head of the party. And then also a member of Democrats, a political action group, a kind of left of center, trying to, revert to some of the labor roots in the word labor, possible, because that was removed many years ago, I remember. I was involved with the Stadrut as they were removing the word social from the party. So he promotes the federation as an approach, a realistic approach to resolve the conflict with Palestinians in the land of Israel. And so he's involved with an organization called Federation.org, and also something else very interesting. I saw Israel Movement, which is a kind of way to revive political engagement in a positive way in Israel proper. To some extent, some of the solutions in your federation are solutions that the Israelis have been looking for themselves in terms of how to make the parliamentary system better reflect the needs of the citizens. CEO of Technology Asia Consulting, Vice Chairman, Israel-Indonesia Chamber of Commerce, Vice Chairman, Israel-German Society. And so a lot of this I pulled out from his book, Identity, Quest for Israel's Future, available at Amazon. You live with your partner, Warsaw, in Herut, Israel, somewhere near Ra'anana. I take it Ra'anana to Netanya. That's all right. And grandfather to Noam and Chen, I help raise Elad, Doram, and Orad. Grandfather and 9 children. See, it's something else we share, nine grandchildren. So now, to our topic. We're in the month of November. So from the Jewish perspective, it's a very portentous month. In 1917, the Balfour Declaration. We'll not go into too much of the history. And then 1947, also November 1947, the UN resolved, right? And it was a Solomonic decision, take the land of Palestine, cut it in half, like Solomon's take the baby, cut it in half. And the Jews were willing to accept half a baby. But the Arabs insisted on all, for themselves only, none for the Jews. And of course, the Arabs end up with none, 48 and 67. And since the Oslo Accords, there was always been an international consensus that there'd be 2 independent states, which doesn't seem to go anywhere. And everybody recognizes it's not going anywhere. As much as the Biden White House says they'd like 2 states, everybody knows it's not going anywhere. So now there are really 3 entities. We know there's Israel, the Palestinian Authority, and Hamastan in Gaza. So, and we also know too well what happened after the Oslo Accords, the blowing up of public buses, and the bloody second Intifada, all done under the auspices of our partner, Yasser Arafat. And then what happens when you do one-sided withdrawal, as from Gaza, and you get missiles in exchange. So to give it short, I'm going to let you take from here. I'll ask you a series of questions. And basically, how do we split the baby, the land of Israel, with King Solomon's wisdom, and still keep it and the people in it alive? So, and certainly it requires thinking out of the box. So number one, what do you mean by federation?
Well, federation, first of all, thank you for having me on your Shabbat service. It's definitely a first for me to participate in the service and also to hear God Bless America sung as part of the service. It's great being here. What I mean by federation is a federated country similar to the United States in the basic form of government, similar to about 30 other countries in the world, like Germany, like Brazil, like Argentina. There are plenty of those countries around. A country with regional government, with a constitution. That's basically it. Separation into länder or provinces or cantons, like we choose to do. So no much difference there. There may be some. So every federation has things in common and has also some differences, and we have to tailor our federation. There may be some differences with regard to religion, but other than that, it should be the same.
So what would make that different from a one-state solution? In what sense?
Well, first of all, it basically is a one-state solution, except that in our proposal, Gaza is not part of it for the simple reason that if Gaza is part of it, there won't be a federation because no Knesset in Israel will agree to a 50-50 demography. So we have to maintain a Jewish majority, and we do that by keeping Gaza separate as it is now, and as it has been also between 1947 and 1967, and also since 2005, Gaza is separate, so there's nothing new. And the rest of the country is between the Jordan River and the sea. That's a bigger Israel, so to speak.
So in other words, it would still have an Israeli aspect and control, especially for security. That's probably the biggest question, always.
Absolutely, yes. No, it will be. Have a 2/3. It will 2/3 to 1 majority, Jewish majority, and the population growth of both sectors of the population is pretty much identical. So that's not going to change over time. and also, or will not change in a major way over time. And by the time it won't make a difference to anybody anymore, I hope. And there's also a mechanism in the government with an upper house in the Knesset, which will make sure that it will be very difficult to change the power arrangement.
So that would make it different from, let's say, a Lebanon, where you had this tripartite division, Christian.
Yes, absolutely. Lebanon is not a good comparison. First of all, Lebanon is not a federation. They also have certain agreements between the different religions. It's not like that. We're going to be a democracy with a constitution. A secular country, the federation will be secular, but the provinces or the cantons will have the shading of the population that lives there, the majority population. It will either be Jewish or Palestinian, Arab, or Druze, whatever.
So now you said about the Gaza Strip, but nobody wants it. The Egyptians don't want it. So how would you get them to be willing to be out of the picture?
Well, first of all, nobody wants them. But the only reason to the only way to deal with Gaza is really to provide it with what it needs to exist as a separate country, and that's not so difficult. Okay, Gaza Strip is small and is densely populated. It's not that densely populated. Turns out there are areas which are more densely populated than Gaza. So there's enough land there, and if we give them an airport and a port and reasonable border arrangements and stop the blockade, it should be possible to work it out. And in my conversations with Palestinians, once that is established, they are not so resistant against the idea. They, of course, know the implications of leaving Gaza outside the political arrangement. They understand the demography, but they understand also why it can't be part of it.
So what about Jordan? Because Jordan was the landlord over the West Bank before '67, and up to 70% of the population Palestinian descent. And even some Palestinians, I've seen essays in, was a Foreign Affairs magazine lately, saying, why don't we just have Jordan take over the West Bank? Is that?
Well, that's very, first of all, in 1988, basically King Hussein signed away the West Bank. He gave up all claims to the West Bank and gave them over to the Palestinians. And that's not going to go. It's not going to go back on that. I think Jordan would be very happy if a Palestinian state would not come into being, for a lot of reasons. Basically, it's for stability reasons. So I don't think that's going to be much of an issue. As long as the Palestinians who do live in the West Bank have equal rights and full civil rights and economic opportunity. There's not going to be much resistance from Jordan, because that will make the situation much more stable than it is now.
They would not be a threat to the realm if they're living well.
Yeah, exactly. That wouldn't be that would not be an issue. Maybe the other way around, that the Palestinians in Jordan would want to come over, but that's another thing altogether.
Exactly.
So
yeah. So now, yeah, I know I saw you have a map, and I've posted it on our.
Oh, you have it there, because I can maybe I can share my screen. You want me to share my screen?
Share the screen for a second. Yeah.
Let me see.
So
let me see how that works.
It looks like.
Now you have disable screen sharing. Anyway, it looks like the land of Israel divided into 30 cantons. The blue cantons, if you have it in color there, the blue cantons are those which are Jewish majority. The green cantons are Palestinian majority. There are some islands in the Palestinian cantons which would be the Jewish settlements in the West Bank. That's if the settlers do not want to be part of the Palestinian cantons, they would be part of the next Jewish canton. When I say Jewish or Palestinian cantons, there would not be solely Jewish or solely Palestinian. There'll just be majority Palestinian and majority Jewish. So that's also.
So you're not creating a Judenrein entity in the West Bank.
No, absolutely not. No, all the cantons are mixed to this or that extent. And the number of cantons which we chose, we have 30 cantons, 20 of them Jewish majority, 10 Palestinian majority, is also can be changed. There's nothing special about the number 30. Usually, we took the Swiss model, which and Switzerland has a similar number, similar population, and has about 26 cantons. So that worked for us, but it can be a smaller number, as long as the number of Jewish and Palestinian cantons represents the actual demography. Okay, so we have, in our case, twice as many Jewish cantons as Palestinian cantons, as the demography would indicate. That's really the only, and that they're clear majority, either Jewish or Palestinian. That's the only criteria.
What? Go ahead.
Somebody asking a question?
Yeah, wait.
Okay.
I'll repeat. Okay, so let's say it's an interesting historic analogy. India was once a unitary entity under the British. They split into the Muslim majority Pakistan, later Bangladesh, and then the Hindu majority India. Oh, are we creating a situation like that? It would be a completely segregated state. I mean, Pakistan has almost no Hindus, for example. India has a lot of Muslims, but Pakistan, yeah, how do? So yeah, if people are moving in and out, how would that occur? Well, they're not moving people. He's not moving people around.
Nobody's moving anywhere.
Yeah.
That's one of the advantages of the system.
No, in the India-Pakistan case, I think it was 100 million refugees were created.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they were afraid of each other. Each one. Yeah, in both directions. Yeah. Yeah. No, so yeah, I think your case is nobody's going to really be in. I see. So if you have a Jewish majority area, would the Arabs run away? Probably not, because it's too comfortable. If you have a Muslim majority Arab, would the Jews run away? Possibly yes, because it's not as well to do. All right? Am I reading that correctly? Okay. Yeah. Okay. So rephrase it in short, and then I'll. Okay, yeah, so would you have a problem of population movement in a significant, other than a few people moving in and out, as people would want to be here and not there? Or does your situation solve that, you're proposing?
No, there's no problem. First of all, even today in Israel, the Arab population in Israel is free to move anywhere it wants, okay? If they don't like where they are, they can move wherever they want to go, and they don't. They like where they are. Arabs like to live with Arabs, and Jews like to live with Jews. So there's going to be some movement, but there's not going to be a major movement, especially if the economy is going to boom, and which it will, in a situation like that. And it'll be easier to make good transportation from canton to canton. So people, and Israel's not a big country. So people can live where they like to live and work where they work. So there shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah. Now, Danielle had asked if we could see the map. I wasn't able to get the screen share. I don't know.
Let me see. You have to enable screen share, which we didn't. So I can't share.
Okay. So, but I
host disabled participant screen sharing. That's what it says for me.
That's okay. Thank you.
What does it say? So you can do it. Give it a try.
I'll try again. Oh, now I can. Hold it. Just a second. Here we go. Can you see it?
There we go. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So you can see
Okay.
the breakdown.
That's great.
Yeah. Green. All right. Go ahead.
Green is Palestinian. Blue is Jewish. Gold. It was supposed to be gold. It looks like yellow. That's Jerusalem. and the red area is the Gaza Strip. Okay, so these are the cantons we're proposing. There are 5 cantons, 5 Palestinian cantons in the West Bank, and there's another 5 Palestinian cantons in Israel proper. These lilac-colored cantons is the Druze canton. So that's what it looks like if we go with our system.
Okay, I assume outside that Jerusalem, there's a little small gold area. Is that Ma'ale Adumim?
Yes, that would be Ma'ale Adumim.
They're not going to give that back because they just opened a beautiful design center and a kids' amusement.
No, they're not going to give it back. My children live there. Some of my children live there, so they're not going to give it back. And this piece here, I don't know whether you see my cursor. This piece here, this blue piece inside the green canton, would be the Jewish settlements in the area. Provided they don't want to be part of the Palestinian canton, okay?
So that's the Gush Etzion, right? Is that?
Yeah, it would be Gush Etzion.
That was a historically Jewish section before 1948, and Hebron. That would be that would be in the middle of an area.
Hebron is somewhere down there.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
So now
I'm going to try to move back. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Now, what about? I see. Now I'm looking at the map, and so some areas like Fahim, which are Israeli Arab, but historically have identified themselves as Palestinians. Is that in green?
Yeah, Fahim would be. Let me see where it would be. Let me see. It should be somewhere around in this area. It's not. We have. Hold it. Can't find it now.
Yeah,
but it's green.
That's probably 21.
Here it is. Number 7. Number 7. We are number 7. Where's number 7? Can anybody see number 7? Number 7.
Wadi Ara. Yeah.
Wadi Ara. So somewhere should be here somewhere. Can't find it now.
Yeah, okay. Somewhere in that area. Yeah, and then also the northern Galilee, which is heavily Arab. I see there.
Yeah,
you think they want to associate with the Palestinian or with the Israeli?
No, they're not going to. Whoever is in the canton will make up their mind what they want. They determine the canton. It's going to be an Israeli canton no matter what. It'll be an Israeli-Palestinian canton, or an Israeli Jewish canton, or an Israeli Arab canton, whatever they choose. Nobody's telling them what they want to call themselves. So that's not an issue. The country is Israel. And the cantons are Israeli cantons. They're Israeli Palestinian cantons or Israeli Jewish cantons.
That's fascinating map. So Gaza, look at that. Gaza is so tiny in comparison.
Yeah, it's not big, but it's actually it's about, I think its length is about 60 kilometers and 60 and 15 to 20 kilometers across or something like that. But there's no real problem of land, and also I'm sure that Egypt could be asked to provide some additional land. I don't think that's a real issue.
You think they would? Because I know the Egyptians are wary of the Hamas influence, and it's
yes. The Egyptians don't want. They don't want Gaza. So this arrangement where Gaza is separate is good for everybody.
So now for Israeli Arabs, there are Israeli Arabs who identify as Palestinians. There are Israeli Arabs who identify as Israelis. And some of them volunteer in the armed forces, for example, as representative speaker, president of the court, things like that. So where would they line up? What do you think? How would they line up?
They are very much in support of this. They're the biggest, they love this arrangement. I mean, the two-state solution for them is problematic because if there are two states, they have an issue of possible dual loyalty, and there would be a danger that the Israeli right wing would want to push them out into their state. Okay, so if we're in a one-state scenario, I call this a hybrid one-state because Gaza is not part of it. So it's a hybrid one-state scenario. They are all in favor. They're all in favor, and many Palestinians are too. Okay, the Palestinians are I've talked to them, and I've talked to quite a lot of them. They are at the stage where they say, if we get equal rights, we don't care what it says on the passport. Okay, they're not happy with the Palestinian Authority.
Now, let's consider now the question of the character of the state of Israel. It's the greatest experiment, I would say, to redefine the trajectory of the Jewish people since the Maccabees. So you mentioned by cutting off Gaza, you think you can protect the demography, but in what way does it become then a Jewish state? How do you maintain the Jewish character?
Well, first of all, the state will remain Jewish by virtue of the fact, a Jewish state or a state for the Jewish people by virtue of the fact that it's a majority Jewish. So that will have an impact, okay? And the way we envisage it, it will have the flag of Israel and have the anthem of Israel, at least for many, many years, okay? The issue is that, you know, when we get to the stage, we start arguing about the flag and the anthem, we're really in good shape. We are really in good shape if we get to that, okay? But I don't think it'll even, I've talked to Palestinian or Israeli Arab politicians and members of parliament. They're not concerned about the flag, okay? They're concerned about equal rights. And there are many European democracies which in the flag still have the original signs of their nation, the nations that founded these democracies, but the countries are already citizen states. Okay, so it's not an issue. It's not a big issue.
Like the Union Jack.
Yeah, like the Union Jack.
Except it may be falling apart. Now, what about then, because tied in with that is the idea of the right of return, which is the state of Israel's claim on us, is that it's our homeland. We have a place when things go sour. A lot of Jews in the United States are worried. So we would have, well, Palestinians would want the same. So how do we handle that?
Well, the way to go, first of all, we have to realize that this is an emotional issue more than it's a practical issue. Okay, it's an emotional issue both for the Jews and for the Palestinians. The Jews don't want any restrictions, of course, and the Palestinians don't want any restrictions either. But just to talk about it is a major issue, is a major problem. You know, the way the moment you talk about the right of return for the Palestinians, the people scream you down. Okay. But the way to go about it is, first of all, to realize that it's practically not a big issue because the numbers that would be involved are small. And the way to go about it in the way we propose is to, over a period of time, normalize immigration policy, meaning that whoever has ties to the land, either Jews or Palestinians, can apply for immigration. And they would be admitted based on a quota system, which initially would be geared to maintain the population balance. But over time, I think people will, it won't make a difference in long term anymore. So what it would theoretically mean that for every 2 Jews, 1 Palestinian can immigrate under that arrangement once we've reached that agreement. This is something which I don't expect to go into operations from the beginning, and just talking about it, I feel comfortable talking with American Jews about it because I don't think that's a major problem. But with Israelis, this is a big issue. Okay, this is a difficult subject to talk about.
So the other question is now, why would the Palestinians want to admit that those Jews in the Jewish entity have a right to be in the Jewish entity? Because that tugs at the heart of their eternal complaint. The
recognition is the non-recognition is mutual. This is an emotional issue. We don't recognize the Palestinian as a nation. Big, all things considered, we don't. Okay, we don't say we are a binational state now, but we don't admit it. Okay, as if that makes a difference. And the Palestinians keep telling us that we're actually European colonialists and we have no business being here. The moment you go down, you leave that conversation and you say what we do. We say, I don't care where everybody is from. We both have the right to live on the whole country, in the whole land, and we have to get along with each other. And this is the best way to go about it, okay? There's no issue. Eventually, there is no issue. There are ideologues who try to keep telling us that we're not really don't have the right and we're colonialists. But once you get to resolve the issues, you understand that this isn't for real. It's a made-up political issue to keep politicians busy.
Okay, so now how do you get the Palestinian Authority to come along? Because basically you're dismantling their
They're unlikely to come along, even though I met a representative from the Palestinian Authority a few days ago and I gave him my book. I don't think he's going to buy into it. No, the Palestinian Authority is very unlikely to buy into it. And it doesn't really concern to the extent that we may have to implement this unilaterally up to a point. What I mean unilaterally, set up the structure and then have the Palestinians vote on it, or the canton, the Palestinian canton vote on it, okay? And once they are in a situation where they get to vote on becoming Israeli citizens, they're going to vote for it. Okay, that I'm regardless what the Palestinian Authority says. So the Palestinian Authority will have the choice to join the club, and then get voted into the cantons if they get voted into them, or just be flooded away with reality.
So it's undoing the Oslo Accords.
Yeah, this is a different. Anyway. This is a different ballgame. This is a different ballgame altogether. Actually, the Oslo Accords talked about Palestinian autonomy. Okay, it didn't talk about the Palestinian state, right. And we are actually here talking about Palestinian autonomy and Jewish autonomy in a united citizen state. Okay, that's actually the scheme.
So now, security, that probably is the biggest worry, security, because I don't see any Israeli defense official giving the keys away to, 1/3 of the Air Force away, whatever.
First of all, security-wise, this is the wet dream of every Israeli rightist, okay? Because we have the borders along the Jordan River, we control the whole territory. Every canton will have internal security forces, which will be provided by the canton, and there will be federal armies in the country wherever it's needed. So that's not an issue. Of course, there will be an intermediate period, from where we are now to where we get to the federation, because you can't create 30 cantons in one go. You have to create cantons slowly, and you have to come them online three in a row over a period of years, and this will take years. Okay, this probably will take decades. And when I presented this plan to Swiss tourists, and they know something about federation, they asked me how long do I think this will take, and I said it will take probably about 20 years or something. So they laughed at me and they said this is going to take 50 years, if not more. Okay. Which is not a bad thing if we do it in the right way, because it gives people a horizon.
It's not an overnight thing that suddenly, boom, we solve the whole problem. No, it's a way to develop.
Yes,
probably the best allies are the business people in the West Bank. I know that I once met an Egyptian-born fellow here whose wife is the daughter of the big billionaire in the West Bank. Masri, is that the guy's name?
Masri.
Yeah, and he was very excited about cooperation with Jews and with Israelis. It was interesting. So probably the business people are the ones.
For the economy, this is a great boon. There was an article in The Economist a couple of years ago where he said that Israel's high-tech industry cannot keep up the rates of growth if it doesn't incorporate the Palestinians and the Haredim into the industry. And there was just a week ago, the Israeli government permitted another quota of 500 Palestinians to work in high tech in Israel. So we're going that way slowly but surely. But a federation would clinch it for good.
Okay, let's see. Movement. So I think we covered actually a lot of the ground on this. And Yeah, I'm just looking at my notes. Education system. How is
Education system would be for the cantons, but there would be a federal requirement to learn 2 languages and basic civics and history, which would be common to the whole country. So the country would become bilingual. That would be a requirement. But other than that, education would be like in the United States by the states. It would be here like by the cantons. Other than for that core curriculum, which would include both languages and history and civics.
So if you have an area like Jerusalem or around the Bnei Brak area, they're going to have a more traditionalist bent in their education.
Absolutely. Everywhere, yeah.
North Tel Aviv would be like, I don't know, like New York, I don't know, whatever. In the
more secular in any way. Yeah.
But you would allow for regional.
Yes, no, it would be education would be according to the cantons, according to the regions, according to the population in the cantons, and there would of course also be private education. You know, we want.
With language, officially, Israelis are supposed to have a year of Arabic in school. None of them learn it.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's not practice.
I think there's a lot more Arabs who speak Hebrew is easier for an Arab than Arabic is for an Israeli, for a Hebrew speaker.
I don't know. It's just that we don't. We're not. You know, we're not exposed to the language as we should be. But this will have to go. We'll have to become bilingual. You know, as a method, not.
This also be involved in the Middle East anyway. We need that.
Yeah, this incidentally is another. Israel would then become part of the Middle East and would not be a European island in the Middle East.
I assume we're also getting the Emirates to buy into this and some of the more.
I'm trying. It's not easy to get a response at this time, but I'm doing my best. If anybody in your community has any contacts in the United Arab Emirates or in Bahrain, please.
Oh, Carmen and then Dr. Moon. All right. Look at the Western Wall. There was a fight this week about women at the wall. Yeah. So, what do you do with the legal status? Yeah. So Carmen is asking, what happens with the issue of the religious authorities? And it would be true for the Muslims as for the Jews.
The state would be a secular state. Okay, there would be a secular constitution. There would be a separation of religion and government. There has to be some freedom of there with relation to what the cantons can do. Maybe, you know, definitely with regard to the day of rest and things like that. But we will not enable a Sharia canton or a Halacha canton. And of course, all the streams of Judaism would be equally appropriate, accommodated in this arrangement. Okay, there wouldn't be an Orthodox an Orthodox authority which would run anything. Okay, so
it might be that each canton would reflect the population to some extent.
Each canton would reflect, but the secular constitution they will not be able to break the secular constitution.
So if someone would want to get married, but he's not going to go to the Rabbanut, he would have a secular marriage.
There would be civil marriage, obviously.
It actually exists in Israel, the contractual arrangements.
Yeah, but there shouldn't be any reason. There is no. Actually, the new Minister of Religious Affairs is trying to install some kind of civil marriage now in Israel. So we're already moving into that direction. But the federation we're talking about, that will be clearly will not be an issue.
Yeah, Dr. Norman, go ahead.
Sir, first of all, very honored to have you. Secondly,
if you refer to the book written by Rabbi Sachs, Lord Jonathan Sachs, The Dignity of Difference, he is mentioning that the root of the problem is the religion.
Okay.
My question it is, how do you resolve the fundamental Islamists who are there, who are in the area, who are totally against the existence of the state of Israel?
Okay.
That is a real problem there, real matter.
Okay. I want to say that I value Rabbi Sachs very much, but I disagree with him. There are religious issues in this conflict, obviously, but this is not a religious conflict. This is a conflict. Our conflict with the Palestinians is a conflict over rights and over land. And also there are religious aspects. Both sides, both the Jews and the Palestinians, are trying to get the religious people on both sides are trying to make it a religious conflict, because if it is a religious conflict, it's intractable. Okay, so there's an interest on the extremes on both sides to make it a religious project. And I encountered what you just said. I countered, here in Israel a lot. People say, "Oh, this is a religious conflict. It's never going to, we'll never be able to resolve it. The Islamists." I spent 2 years living in a Muslim country. Okay, and Islam can deal with secular politics, and Islamists and Muslims can live with non-Muslims in peace. Okay, so the religious, I would like the religious authorities on both sides, or religious people on both sides, to be part of this effort to work this out. This will definitely help, and we have on the federation team, we have a rabbi, or actually more than one, and and there are probably also some, the Palestinians in many instances are traditional, so they're so semi-religious, they're not Islamists. Again, once we solve the issue of rights and land, there won't be very much left to fight about. And I'm pretty sure that even Jews will have no problem praying on the Temple Mount once that the national conflict is dissolved. Okay, so I feel very confident about it. I've talked to a lot of people about it, and I get a lot of support on that line of thinking. I hope that answers you.
In Muslim countries, Islam is losing steam. But in Europe, for example, the Islamists are very strong. It's like when you live.
They're under pressure. They're under pressure. When Islamists go to Europe, they see all this freedom, so they have to go the other way to keep their faith.
So when you live under it, you don't want it.
Yeah. So, but again, religion is an issue, but it's not a deal breaker by any means. I hope that answered your question to some extent.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Do you have a page on YouTube?
I'm just setting that up. I have a lot of videos on YouTube, also in English. I'm mainly on Facebook. I have a page called the Federation Movement in English, which has all the videos on it. And the same videos are also on YouTube, but I haven't set up a YouTube channel yet, which I'm doing that these days.
Okay, please do it. What is the book that you talk?
The book is called Identity: The Quest for Israel's Future. I think Rabbi Norbert will be able to give you the link. It's on Amazon.
Now, I don't agree with you. You put a rose picture, and it's not true. you see how the Christian get slaughtered and killed in the Muslim countries. You can see in Bethlehem how many Christians really we have. You can see all the what's going on in Egypt with the Coptic, how they killing them. You see how they this. What you talking? What you doing, Rosie? It's not true. We have a Palestinian.
We're not talking.
Now I'm talking. I didn't interrupt you. Okay. We see how in Gaza, what happened in Gaza. Okay.
Yeah. So, Simon, he said Gaza is out of the picture. That's, for example.
We are not a Muslim country. Muslims are a minority in Israel. We have for 70 years lived with a 20% Muslim minority, and it's been pretty good. We had some problems recently, which are the result of 70 years of discrimination and neglect, and also other things. There's absolutely no problem of living together in peace with Muslims in a Jewish majority country, and there won't be. So you don't have to look at countries where there are severe issues of democracy and severe issues of Islamism. I'm quite confident that I'm not talking. I'm based on what I say. Also from my personal experience living in a Muslim country.
Because I was saying it's not an overnight. You're talking about 20 to 50
No,
years.
this is a lengthy process.
I know Americans like to resolve everything yesterday.
Yeah.
That's an American inclination.
Yeah.
Other people in the world have long range. The Chinese look at Taiwan, and another 100 years won't be a problem for them.
Absolutely.
Right? They took a long range on Hong Kong. So there's definitely a long range perspective and 1-2 on the spot. But it also it takes pressure off of the American government, the Europeans, to say, "Oh, you have to have a solution now," because they're working on it.
Yeah, well, the Europeans, they'll go along with anything we agree on with the Palestinians. It's difficult to get them to join such a thing before the Palestinians have said, "Oh, we'll go with it." But I have no doubt they will, and I feel confident about the Americans too. I have made several efforts to engage the U.S. government at this time to know. Without success, but they'll come on board. I'm not concerned about that.
By the way, just an aside, not separate from the Palestinian issue, the idea of a canton system is something that many people in the Israeli political establishment have wished for, because it enables local representation to control who's going to Knesset, rather than some abstract party list. I understand that would.
Yeah. By the way, the rabbi correctly said we just recently had the Ministry of Interior had a committee make a report to restructure the Israeli regional government, and what they're basically proposing is a federal system. They don't use the word federation or federal, but they describe such a system of provinces, of 20 provinces, and autonomous government, regional government. So we are getting there as it is already, without the political aspects.
That would be an very important reform inside the Israeli system itself.
Absolutely.
It's a power to the people. It's devolution, right? It's bring it back down to
it would, yeah.
Okay, very interesting. I tell you what, we are running up on the climb. I want to thank you because it's. Maybe we can have something later on also, just as a follow-up, because on what you're doing with this, the Israeli movement also is fascinating. But I appreciate this is Motzei Shabbat, Saturday night. You could be out with your friends having a coffee at Kasit instead. You're here.
I enjoy being.
Although Thursday night's the bigger party night now. That's what
Thursday night is, yeah.
But
I enjoyed being with you, and I'm available, so you can engage me directly.
If people want to contact, I'm going to do a clip of this session, so it'll be up on YouTube and Facebook, so you can share it, other people can share it. We have people who are watching online, not just on Zoom, but also on Facebook and YouTube. I want to thank you very much. We need, whatever the solution, the two states not working, a one state without any definition of who's going to be what is difficult. So here's a work about, and that's basically what you're offering us. Yeah. Are you in touch with Palestinians on this? Yeah. Yeah. Oh, for a second. Are you in touch with Palestinians on this?
Are you asking me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, of course. I'm in touch with Palestinians all the time. The issue is one of the issues is that we're doing that not so openly, for a simple reason that the more I'm in touch with Palestinians and make a fuss about it, the more the Jews will get suspicious, because you know the Israelis look at this and they say, if the Palestinians like this, this isn't any good. There's something wrong with it. So I have to be careful, and I have to manage the context thing. We have a federal forum which is getting more time engagement now, where all the organizations which promote federations or federal solutions are together, and that we have Palestinian participants. So this is, you know, we're keeping an eye on things and we're keeping in touch. So
I have a writer I have to get you in touch with. He was a teacher in the school that was in this building many years ago, Jewish high school, but he's Egyptian Coptic, and he wrote a novel of somebody who becomes the Israeli prime minister, who on the side has an affair with somebody who is a leading figure in the Palestinians. He's trying to resolve this odd couple situation. That's what we have, odd couple situation. I think that'll be an interesting contact for you. Let's try to get it. I want to thank you very much. Okay, and
thank you, and have a nice Shabbat, rest of Shabbat.
Okay,
and it was great being with you. Shabbat Tov. Thank you.
Okay, and we're going to round up. Let's go and we'll get the main screen back up, and we'll finish Adon Olam together and break for Kiddush. You're welcome to join us. Adon Olam, page 514. Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yetzir Nivra Le'nasa B'chefzo Kol Azai Melech Shemo Nikra B'Acharei Tichlot HaKol Levado Yimloch Nora V'hu Haya V'hu Hove V'hu Yeh B'tifara V'hu Echad Ve'ein Sheni V'hamshir Lo L'hachmira V'li'reshit V'li'tachlit V'lo ha'oz V'ha'misra V'hu Eli V'chai Gali V'tzorcheli V'etzara V'hu Nisi Umanos Li Menat Gosi B'yom Ekra B'yado Afkiduchi V'yedisha V'ayira V'yimruchi Gediati Adonai li v'lo yira. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Everybody.